Hi everybody. Happy Friday afternoon. So it is gorgeous in Chicago. I'm sitting outside on my patio. So if you see swatting, um, it is intentional. There's bugs. Um, so don't fret for my spasms. Today we are gonna talk about a subject that was a request from a participant. I did a video a few years ago and I'm actually going to share it in the group after this one is done. I purposely did not rewatch it because I didn't want what I had to say before to contribute or modify some of what I have to say now. And I, of course, want to give a warning to say that this is one of my favorite topics to discuss. It seems morbid, but it's absolutely something that I'm very passionate about. And I would suggest if there are little ones in the group, or if you're at, or little ones in the room, or if you're at work, maybe put your headphones on, because if there's foul language to be had, or obviously the topic of suicide is very triggering and very hard for some people. So I would suggest headphones. But let's jump in. And of course, if you have something to say, if you have something to contribute, please don't hesitate. I do have the computer open as well, so this is going to be much more interesting if there's a dialogue, if there's some discourse, as opposed to just my typical lecture. But let's jump in. So there's two ways that I want to approach this and that we're going to cover in the next few minutes. Number one is when someone commits suicide, it is not an instant decision, although it is an instant action. And number two, the way that you approach your health on an everyday basis should be viewed as, or could be viewed as, almost chronically committing suicide. So those are the two ways that we're going to look at this today. Number one, for those of you that don't know, I had a stalker in college. I came back from the University of Kansas at 19. I went to CLC for a year. And during that time, thanks to Jan, I saw a handful of mental health specialists, was tested for everything under the sun, from depression to anxiety to obsessive compulsive disorder. And again, I'm embarrassed to say this was obviously over 20 years ago. It was almost 25 years ago now. The approach that they took to mental health was not very different than they do right now. And I was, of course, given antidepressants. I don't remember anyone ever discussing diet with me. I don't remember anyone ever discussing physical activity with me. And again, aside from being depressed, and rightfully depressed, because I had, my freshman year experiences had been taken away from me. My opportunity to compete in my sport had been taken away from me. So I had excessive feelings of being out of control. Yeah, Amy, go ahead, come back. We'll be here. And again, rightfully so. Now, did those things necessitate medication? Maybe at the time. I can tell you that I had experienced feelings of suicide. I had experienced feelings of hopelessness. And so when I lecture on this, or when I discuss it, I come from a place of experience. This is not purely coming from a place of education and medicinal background. So I remember I was given antidepressants, a cocktail of things, which again, some can relate to. When dosages didn't seem to be when the medication didn't seem to be working and my mood wasn't improving, dosages were increased. At one point, I was also given sleeping pills. And again, this is at 19. So I remember the only way that I could relate, and I had at that point never had alcohol. I had never done drugs. I've never smoked pot. So what I was feeling is probably a feeling that a lot of people pay for, a lot of people are looking for, but I was feeling a disconnect between my brain and my body. I was still competing as an athlete at that time, and my body was not doing what my brain was telling it to do. And that was very scary for me. So I took myself off of the medication entirely, which again is not recommended because side effects of these things are homicide. Side effects of these medications are suicide. Obviously, side effects of these medications are weight gain and sexual dysfunction, and I mean, the list goes on and on. So a few months after that, when, not being on them obviously wasn't helping my situation either, I saw a provider that did a 24-hour urine catch. Yes. So I literally had a jug that I had to have with me for 24 hours, and every time I peed, it was like being in the hospital. It went in the jug, and the jug went in the refrigerator. And I can tell you now, testing has improved in the last 24 or so years. But he was the first individual, and again, this had been going on for probably a year, where I was not feeling as good as I wanted to. He diagnosed me with, obviously having depression, but diagnosed my depression being related to my dopamine levels, as opposed to being related to serotonin, which for a lot of you, if you have been diagnosed with a mood disorder, I'm going to put my Vegas wager on the fact that you're probably on an SSRI, and that's a whole nother video. But that's what they had originally put me on as well, and that's why they were not impacting my mood, because my problem was not related to serotonin, my problem was related to dopamine. So he put me on a different medication, which from what I recall, maybe helped take the edge off. So maybe I wasn't depressed, but I was by no means happy or energetic or motivated, which are the things that come, can come naturally from modifying some of your behaviors. And again, even he, I don't recall him discussing with me what my diet was like or what my activity level was like. And so again, after probably a couple months, I went off everything, and I haven't been on anything since, in, again, like 20 years. So obviously, of my own research and studying neurology and studying the power of the body and the power of lifestyle modifications, have continued to improve how I feel and my mood and things like that with healthy diet, gratitude exercises, physical activity, things like that. So the reason that I say that committing the act of suicide not being a one-time action, I will tell you that it's not like a car accident where everything's fine and life is great and you're driving along and then you wake up and decide that today is the end. So typically there's going to be some ongoing challenges and ongoing issues, and there are probably, in addition to the biochemical imbalances going on, there are probably some other issues going on with individuals where their diet is not what it should be or could be, because there's going to be inflammation from that. Their activity level is probably not what it should be or could be, and there's going to be side effects from that as well. So, when it comes to hearing that someone committed suicide or thoughts of suicide yourself, I would suggest, that you take some time and you look at implementing some of these steps. And again, I will tell you firsthand, as someone that was depressed and spent probably 20 out of 24 hours, or maybe 22 out of 24 hours a day in bed, telling someone to just eat better, or telling someone to just go for a walk, and that's by no means what I'm suggesting, is a lot easier said than done. But if it's you yourself, there has to come a point when you decide to do some of that for yourself, and that's what I did. So and there are amazing resources, and there are amazing individuals even within this group that are there for support. So if you need someone, for me, when it was working out, I lived probably 2 blocks from the Center Club in Libertyville. And I had a membership, and I probably had a membership for almost a year without going. And so when I finally said enough is enough, I would get up, I would put my workout clothes on, I would go to the Center Club, I would swipe in, and for those of you that remember the Center Club, you'd swipe in. It was kind of like a rotunda. I would literally swipe in, I would walk around, and I would walk out. The individual checking me in maybe thought I forgot my shoes or, forgot my bra, whatever it was. But I literally did that for probably 2 weeks before I felt good enough to work out or to do anything. So literally I would put my workout, I would get up at 5:30, put my workout clothes on, go to the gym, swipe in, go through the rotunda, and leave and go back to bed. So then after about 2 weeks of that, I would, and she never quit, nobody ever questioned me. I would swipe in, and same thing at the Center Club. I would go down the stairs, and then I would go up the stairs to the track, and I'd walk the track, probably like 6 or 8 times around was a mile. I'd probably walk like half that, and same thing, and it takes I don't even know at that time, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then I would go home, and I would go back to bed. And I did that for, probably 2 weeks until I felt better. And I said, okay, today you're going to do a mile. And I did that. And then little by little, it increased, and obviously since then, exercise has been a relatively big part of my life. And I absolutely notice that if I don't work out for, usually it's a weekend. So if I take 3 days off, I absolutely notice, and I'm very sensitive to how I feel, but I absolutely notice a difference in my mood, in my motivation, in how I'm feeling overall. So that's sort of the window that I've personally established. So the second part of what I wanted to talk about was suicide being a chronic condition. And I think everyone can relate to this, but I will use my father as an example. So for those of you that don't know, I will say my dad died suddenly, but our father passed away in July of 2016 when I was pregnant with Parker, and he didn't even know that I was pregnant with Parker. But he had been making poor lifestyle choices for the majority of his life. So my dad was like 2021 when my parents got married. He was tall. He was 6'4", probably like 175. So he was tall and thin. And then, life happened. So he got married, had kids, had responsibilities, moved from Sandwich, Illinois to building a large house in Green Oaks. I came along 10 years later. Jade came along 5 years after that. And I don't remember a time when my dad was in good shape. I always remember my dad being overweight. My dad was a great dad. He built me a soccer goal out of PFC piping. But I don't remember him being thoroughly active. I remember him spending a lot of time on the couch. I remember him having a big love affair with Diet Pepsi. But as far as saying that he made good lifestyle choices, that didn't happen. I remember Jan putting out vitamins in Dixie cups. My parents both, at the time, drank a lot of iced tea. And I remember, and this is obviously before it was very well known, but there was a giant, and by giant, literally like this big, container of Sweet and Low in our house. Which obviously, looking back to me, that's like a giant container of like cancer and brain damage. So, when I say that my dad died suddenly, it wasn't sudden. He had made poor lifestyle choices for probably 45 years, and there comes a point where your body can't recover. And there, I often tell clients that there's no end, there's no end date when you shouldn't make a modification until you're in the box. Obviously at that point, it's a little late to change your choices. However, the interventions that are required will obviously exponentially increase depending on how long you abuse your body. So what does this have to do with everybody watching right now? I have a great friend that is hosting a coaching program, and they were actually discussing yesterday Cool Whip and how some people eat Cool Whip. And her recommendation was, yeah, you know what, if you're going to do something, it's not necessarily a cheat, you know, own it, eat what you want, do what you want, and then move on, let it go. And I absolutely subscribe to that recommendation until those poor choices become your normal. Then that's a problem. And when it comes to food, all of us have to eat. So when it comes to food, you should recognize that food is either going to be your biggest ally and your most powerful medicine, or your food is going to become, you know, your quickest way to death. Now, does that mean that you should never go out and, you know, and have a fancy, naughty dinner? Does that mean that you should never have pizza again, or you know, never have a French fry? Absolutely not. But those things, and again, in the American diet, those things are not usually viewed as treats. You know, that's for some people something that they're doing every single day. And you cannot expect your body to function at a high level or at a productive level if that's the fuel that you're continually feeding it. So my hope with this, you know, obviously this video, and, you know, saying that every single day when you make a poor choice, you are little by little committing suicide, is a pretty aggressive stance. And, you know, anybody that wants to hop on here and make an argument of this or, you know, refute my feelings, you know, please do. Opinions are like, you know what, and everybody has one. But this is my stance, and it comes from personal experience, and it comes from the fact that had my father made better choices somewhere along the line in those 40 years, he would have been here to see Parker. He would have been here to see Jameson. And so he deliberately made poor choices, and so little by little, to me, that is committing suicide essentially on a daily basis. So if you look at what your habits are, and that's why in a lot of these videos I'll say, what is your why? And it's not about making a left-hand turn in your lifestyle choices. It's about making tiny shifts. It's about making little pivots that are manageable and that you're able to do every day. So to say, you know, that you're not going to work out because you don't like working out and there's nothing that you enjoy, your body was designed to move. So you're essentially taking away part of the nutrition that your body requires in order to function as well as it could be. To not drink water, or to say that you don't like the taste of water. That was my grandmother's thing. You know, too bad. You know, I mean, everything in life is not meant to taste like a chocolate shake. And when you're able to take some of these high sugar foods out, when you're able to eat healthy, you realize how incredible you feel when you're hydrated, when you're moving, you know, when you're giving your body the fuel that it requires. And unfortunately, in the United States, again, the quality of our food isn't amazing. Our soil is depleted. You know, everything's sprayed with pesticides and herbicides and GMOs. You know, there's a lot of moving pieces and parts there. But when you're making the best choices that you can, and obviously the example I've used a million times, that is the apple over the donut, your body's going to thank you for it. So if there's a rut that you're in, if you feel like, you know, you're making these choices and you're happy making these choices, you know, that's okay. I can't care about anybody's health more than they do. However, I would ask you to take a look at how these choices are impacting your why, or how these choices are impacting those that care about you. Because your body was designed to live and live well much longer than a lot of us are. So what would life look like if you were not only dancing with your spouse at your 50th anniversary, but dancing with your spouse at like your 70th anniversary? Parker, and actually Will, was very blessed to be in his mid-30s and have all four of his grandparents still alive. And now with it being a few years later, he still has one of his grandparents. So Parker was blessed to get the opportunity to meet two of his great grandparents, which I think is awesome. And depending, of course, on how old people are when they have children, that will all impact that. But it's also, what's the longevity that you are looking for? What do you want life to be like? Do you want to be 70, 80, 90 and be in a home and have to have individuals taking care of you and doing things for you? Or do you want to be that, 70, 80, 90-year-old that is driving to lunch, or, taking your great-grandchildren for a ride on the tractor? You have the choice. And if you're feeling overwhelmed or you don't know where to start, obviously that's what I'm here for. If it's just about making a few little tweaks, then, I've suggested this before, put your accountability in the group. Let people know what your goal is, what you're working for, why you're doing this. If you're, and we have a lot of professionals in this group, if this is, your area of expertise, then, let people know, that you're available to help coach them through some of this, because, we can't do this alone. We shouldn't do this alone. Being healthy, making healthy choices should be the norm. And unfortunately, a lot of it's not. So it can, you can get lost in the noise of the poor choices. And it's much easier to do things when you have your group and you have your tribe and you have people that are supporting you, and the norm for you becomes going for a walk every night, and the norm becomes drinking your water, and the norm becomes those, cooking at home and meal planning. And if that's not what you're surrounded by, find it, because believe me, it's out there. I had a patient say to me once, when I was educating her on some healthy choices and the way the body works and how easy it is to thrive under the right conditions. She was like, why don't people talk like this? And I said, they do, you just have to find them. That's part of the reason that our women's retreat was created. And that's part of the reason that some of the group programs that I do came about, because it's very refreshing and it's easier to swim when you're with your tribe as opposed to trying to, sludge through mud uphill. So if you have questions, feel free to send me a private message. If you have something, obviously, to contribute to the video, as always, post it in the comments. And look for, Christy and I are finishing up the group, sort of group consult that we put together for next week. It's either going to be, I think, Monday or Wednesday evening at 5 p.m. So stay tuned for that. And then we've also got a group, a free group snack challenge for next week. So I'll put that link in the group as well. So if any of that resonated, please let me know. If there's anything that you would like to contribute, as always, please let me know. But recognize that, your body is powerful and that you are the one in control of the direction that things end up. So please make sure that you are driving safely and making conscious choices on where you would like this journey to end. Have a beautiful weekend. I love you. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you later. Bye-bye.